The new Toyota Prius Prime is a fantastic car, but not for the reasons you may think. This might seem like one of the most frugal ways to get around, but in reality, it doesn't make sense for a lot of people. But how? It's a cheap-to-run EV for your regular commutes and then a petrol-sipping Prius for the long haul. So there's no range anxiety. It's like being the kicker in pro-American football. You get all of the money without any of the brain trauma. Well, on paper and in practice, the financial proposition is tarnished for most by a $5,000 price premium versus the standard car. This is something that's unfortunately common in the PHEV space, but I say for most because there are exceptions. All right, let's break down the math, but not on paper. I won't subject you to my elementary handwriting. So for a plug-in hybrid to make sense, you're gonna have to charge it at home or work. If you don't have that access, I would strongly advise the regular model. That said, I would also consider one if most of your drives are short, yet you still somewhat regularly push the limits of what a standard EV can do. Thankfully, the base Prime SE comes with 44 miles of range, which is really good for a PHEV. Let's say you drive 10,000 miles a year, and you're able to make 7,500 of those all electric. We'll also assume that you can hit the EPA's rating of 26 kilowatt hours for every 100 miles. This means that you would use about 1,950 kilowatt hour to go 7,500 miles. The average price for a kilowatt hour is about 15 cents, and it's on the way up. If we multiply those two, we get $292.50 to go 7,500 miles, which sounds pretty good to me. But now we have 2,500 miles of hybrid driving, where the EPA says you should get about 52 miles per gallon. With an average fuel cost of $3.75, it would cost you about $180 to go the remainder of miles, bringing your total to $472.79. See, bro, PHEVs rock. That's super cheap. You're clueless. Okay, well, if we have the standard Prius LE getting 57 miles per gallon according to the EPA, that'll bring you up to about $658 to go 10,000 miles. That's a difference of $185, and because this costs $5,000 more, it would take you 270,000 miles or 27 years to make up the price of the Prius Prime. But what if you live in a place with stupid high gas prices like Los Angeles? Well, the electricity prices are really expensive too. So in that case, with 25 cents, sometimes 30 cents per kilowatt hour, even if you're paying over $5 a gallon, it's still gonna take you roughly the same amount of miles to make up the money. This is not because the Prime is a bad PHEV, it's because the regular Prius is so damn efficient. The big caveat to this is that if you have solar power or a way to charge for free, then this actually makes a ton of sense, and I would strongly recommend it. Thankfully, production numbers have made this less of an issue than it was a year ago, but depending on your region, you might also run into dealer markups. And this may make the Prime seem dumb, but once you drive it, you realize there's a lot more to this car. And most of that comes down to this feeling like an actual EV. So one, in the real world, that good EV range actually holds up. And because it has 161 horsepower from its single drive motor, it can really live without the 2-liter naturally aspirated inline-4. The maximum combined output is 220 horsepower. This means it accelerates more like an EV with VTEC. It still sounds like a vacuum cleaner with a clogged filter, but it does have great response with even more power available up top. Passing power is even relaxed in EV mode, but as the engine kicks in, this thing goes to highway speed and beyond with no fuss at all. The regular Prius is also peppy, but not as eager as this. It'll scoot to 60 about a half second quicker or so than the regular car at 6.7 seconds. And at low speeds, you really get to feel that reactive EV nature, this still utilizes Toyota's clever eCVT, which has a separate electric motor to help change the ratios for the 2-liter. It can do this quickly, and it also comes with a planetary gear set, so it feels more linear than a standard CVT. While power was greatly improved over the previous generation, something else that Toyota focused on was the handling, and man, it made such a big difference. While the steering is numb, it's predictable and well-weighted, especially in sport mode where it adds a little bit of heft. Even if the road isn't perfect and you have a little bit of body roll, it's never loose. It feels secure, and one might even say poised. It also has a fairly quick ratio. There is maybe a little bit more body roll than what I found with the regular Prius. I won't say the Prime feels exactly light on its toes. It's still a suspension that cares about your comfort, and it is dealing with nearly 400 pounds of additional weight from the larger battery. Something that I've noticed in a few PHEVs is that their added heft requires a little bit more dampening, and that stiffer suspension makes them ride a little bit worse over torn up back roads. And that's not the case here. Maybe it's because the weight difference is more like having a well-fed friend in the back seat than a full-grown grizzly bear. But even comparing this to a wider variety of cars, I think this finds a great balance between being smooth and sporty. Small to medium-sized imperfections barely bother the cabin. You'll feel the larger stuff, but it's not jarring. Don't get me wrong, this isn't encroaching on luxury car territory, but it's a compliant ride, and I feel confident in recommending this to someone who lives on forgotten back roads. Pulling up to highway speeds, you can actually do up to 84 miles per hour in full EV mode, but it is a bit noisy. Wind noise isn't bad, but tire noise is pronounced. And then while you're peacefully driving along, if the engine kicks in, it can sound like your upstairs neighbor's blender at 7 a.m. The only equipment difference I could notice between this and the standard Prius is that the Prime gets traffic jam assist, which is actually really helpful for congested city driving, as below 30 miles per hour, it can take control over the gas and the steering. The problem is that in order to do this, it needs to watch your face, and it becomes more neurotic than a mom after their 15-year-old gets a driver's permit.
Oncoming traffic. Oncoming traffic. There's a deer. Oh my god. Check the owner manual. Sit up.
It regularly loses your face and gets confused if you put a hand on top of the wheel or lay your head back. It's also thrown into a tizzy at intersections if you think about inching forward and a car is detected within the tri-state area. It might be having a mental crisis, but at least it looks cool while doing so. Subtle badging and wheel changes will tell apart the Prime from the standard Prius. Personally, I like the original modern design, but with the base wheels, it does make the car look like a prop from iRobot. The low-slung roofline also compromises a little on visibility and ease of entry too. And while general build quality is competitive, the doors sound more hollow than a YouTuber apology. The Prime also takes on a sporty theme, which means we get red stitching. Here in its cheapest form, I still find this to be an aesthetically pleasing, functional cabin with straightforward controls and soft touch materials in most places that you would want them, including where your outboard knee will rest. I also have plenty of storage and hashtag cubbies. The infotainment is simple and fast enough with wireless CarPlay too, and a hallmark of Priuses is a futuristic layout. Here I'm a fan with one small exception, and that is the gauge cluster location. For a lot of people, you're going to have to adjust your seating position slightly so that the steering wheel doesn't block your view of it. And this being the cheapest model, there are also some weird cost cuts. For instance, we have cool LED headlights and DRLs with automatic high beams, but the headlights themselves are not automatic in a $34,000 car. This also does come with Toyota's Smart Key, but it's only for the driver's door. They don't have it on the passenger side or even the tailgate, but I can live with those things. What about comfort? So at 6'3", I might want better thigh support, but I find these seats to be well shaped so that even without lumbar adjustment, which you have to pay more for, I'm comfortable on extended drives. And for a compact, I'm pleased to say I can fit behind myself, though my knees will be grazing the seat and my head will be touching the ceiling. What I find interesting is that they took the time to give you USB-C ports and a wall outlet, yet they forego elbow padding on the doors, and none have console vents. Moving into the cargo area, its sleek wedge design sacrifices some height. It's long, but some bulky items could be a problem, and there's also no spare tire underneath the floor. It's comparable in size to the standard Prius. The Prius Prime hardly makes any sacrifice while carrying around its beefier motor and larger battery pack. Toyota really has the hybrid game down, even if its 13 kilowatt hour battery takes a while to recharge, something that usually isn't a big deal for a car like this. I also can't comment much on reliability, as this is an all-new model, but the Prius has historically been great, and the 2-liter engine has also proven itself to be trustworthy in the new Corolla. Yeah, the battery life in the past has been a conservative 12 to 15 years, though a lot of people have gotten the old batteries to over 200,000 miles. I'm hoping that battery technology will eventually make this a concern of the past. And according to the IIHS, this should also hold up well in a world where 3-ton trucks are a style statement, even if there is some room for improvement. So, if it doesn't make financial sense unless you have solar panels or you steal your neighbor's electricity, why bother with the Prius Prime? Well, if you want an affordable EV from a brand known for longevity, this is really about the closest you're gonna get. And all electric vehicles of a similar quality just cost more than this, assuming that you can find one at MSRP. But back to the main topic, if you're comparing this to a full-on EV, you will have a small battery. So as long as you're not relying too much on internal combustion, this should be a very environmentally friendly way of getting around, even if you are drawing power from non-renewables. If we're comparing this to a regular Prius, you will get to be more green at the cost of cost. And lastly, I think the more responsive powertrain partially justifies the price. It's that noticeable. So does that mean that the Prime is actually worth the money to me personally? No, I would rather just save my money and just grab a regular Prius and then invest my $5,000 into a diversified portfolio. Nah, I'm kidding. I would buy a 90s Mustang and then a bunch of drift parts to then not go drifting with it. But if you can swing the extra cash and you want a more punchy Prius with a cleaner conscience, this one's for you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like and help me take on the maniacal YouTube algorithm. Subscribe and hit the notification bell for more fun, detailed car content without fluff. Consider becoming a channel member for an additional podcast, and I'll catch you on the next one.